One of the realities of working with a database system is the fact that periodically things can go wrong. I may try to delete an item and have that fail. I may try to execute an update statement that violates a constraint or some referential integrity rule, and that winds up raising an error. What we want to do in this lesson is we want to take a look at how we can best handle and best respond to those errors. Now, the first thing that we want to take a look at is try-catch, which is going to be the easiest way that we can catch an error and respond to it. Now, technically, there's actually two ways that we can detect an error. One way is by utilizing the @error system variable. Now, if there's no error based on the last operation, @error will wind up being 0. But if there is an error, it'll wind up being something other than 0. Using @error, however, is not really a best practice any longer for a couple of different reasons. Number one, because it requires that I call it after every single operation. That if I execute another operation and that succeeds, @error is going to be reset back to 0. The second thing is how my code winds up coming together. That if I'm using @error, basically my code winds up being, do this, did that work? If so, do this, did that work? If so, do this, did that work? And you start to see that not only is that just annoying to listen to, it's also annoying to have to write and to eventually have to read later on. This is where try-catch comes into play. With try-catch, basically what we wind up doing is we wind up saying, hey SQL, do this, and then do this, and then do this. Oh, and by the way, if something goes wrong, let me know. And the way that it's going to let me know is by throwing me into the catch block. The basic syntax of try-catch is just as you see right here. Begin try, and then again inside of there we perform all of our tasks. Now the big thing about the try block is we're always going to assume success, because the only way that we're going to get to the next line of code is if the line before it succeeded. On the flip side, the catch block is where we're going to wind up should an error occur. So inside of there, we can then implement whatever error handling it is that we might want. Let's take a quick look at how to do try-catch. I'm going to open up the Management Studio here, open up a new query window, and what I'm going to do is put together a SQL that we've already seen. I'm going to begin a transaction. I'm going to say update the production product category table. I'm going to set the name to be widgets for category ID of 1. So say where product category ID equals 1. And by the way, let me make sure that we've got the right database. So I'm just going to sneak up top here, just change that to be AdventureWorks. There we go. And then let's say delete from production product subcategory where product subcategory ID equals 1. Okay. And then finally, commit transaction. So what I want you to notice here, SQL that we've already seen. But the problem that we have is something may wind up going wrong here. This is where the try-catch comes into play. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back up top, and I'm going to nest this inside of a try-catch. So we say begin try, and then just a little bit of formatting here. Just make sure that we tab that in. And then I'm going to say end try. Now, one very big thing about the end try and then eventually the begin catch is nothing is allowed in here. You can put a white space, you can put them in comments, but you're not allowed to put in any T-SQL code. And so then I'm going to have begin catch, and let's put on our end catch. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to sneak right here, and I'm just going to put in a real quick comment. If we're in here, we know something went wrong. It's the only way we're going to wind up inside of our catch block. So, of course, one of the first things that we typically need to do is roll back the transaction. So, of course, we do that by saying roll back transaction, and then we want to do some form of error handling. Now, typically, error handling is going to involve maybe some form of a log, erasing an error back to the user, something like that. So what I want to do in my little example here is I'm just going to say print, and let's just say an error occurred. Okay. And by the way, print just simply prints something out into the output window. So now that I've got this built, what I'm going to do is execute this, and you're going to notice that it tells us 1 row affected and then 0 rows affected. The reason that it was 0 rows is because that second one threw an error. Now, I actually knew this was going to happen because my product subcategory of 1 happens to be mountain bikes. There are products that point to that, so we're not going to be able to delete them. So you'll notice that what winds up happening is it prints out an error occurred. Now, if I opened up a new query window and I now said select, and let's grab the name from production product category, what you're going to notice, actually, let me do this, where product category ID equals 1. This is going to be better. What you're going to notice is that my product category was not updated. That's because we rolled back the transaction. You're also going to notice, if we say select name from production product subcategory, where product subcategory ID equals 1, now what you're going to notice on the second one is that sure enough it's mountain bikes. So that's still standing. None of our changes were actually implemented because, again, kick back to the other window, we rolled back the transaction inside of the catch block. You'll also notice that we just simply printed out an error occurred. Well, we probably want a little bit more information about our error. Fortunately, we can get that. Let's go back to the slides here for a minute. What you're going to notice is that once I'm inside of catch, I can basically find out everything that went wrong. So if I want to grab the number of the error, I can do that. If I want to grab the name of the procedure, I can do that. So if I maybe called the store procedure, and that's what errored out, I'll be able to find out the name of that by using error procedure. If I want to find out what line the error occurred on, I can do that. If I want to find out the message, I can do that. And then finally, if I want to find the severity or the state, which is a concept we're going to talk about a little bit later in this lesson, I can do that by calling the appropriate functions. So let's say in our little example that what we want to do is we just want to print out the error message. Back to the Management Studio. And what I'm going to do is instead of having that little an error occurred, I'm now going to say error message. And now the error message that's going to be printed out is going to be the same error message as a normal foreign key relationship violation that you'll notice it tells us that the delete statement conflicted with the reference constraint fkey product subcategory, basically telling us that we're not allowed to delete a product subcategory if it has products. So the great part about all of those functions is that it allows me to go in and find out exactly what went wrong. Now, what you're going to do with this information is sort of up to you. You could go ahead and write that out to a log somewhere. You could send out an email. You could maybe even potentially try it again, depending on what the error actually happened to be. So what it is that you do is going to vary, but how you do it is exactly what we've seen right here.